Megan.
Hey, Sarah.
How are you? What's going on this week?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I am starting to set up my own practice for clinical psychology.
So
Yeah,
exciting.
I'm super excited. I think I'm going to go into child assessments. And that was sort of what I specialized in grad school was doing all those assessments. And I love doing like IQ and academic performance and psychologicals and things like that. So I think I'm going to focus on that, but also do like, a mix of therapy. So I'm just dabbling right now with like, how do I set this up and what kind of liability insurance do I need to have and stuff like that. So it's a
That
lot of
is so
research.
exciting. I think there's such
Yeah.
a need for that.
There is. I'm really surprised. I was talking to a mom recently who said there's like a 9 to 12 month wait to get even like a simple assessment done for a child. So
Oh,
I heard
wow.
that and I was like, wow, there's a real need, and I'm sort of intrinsically interested in that to begin with. So
Yeah.
seems like a good fit and maybe something fun to do on the side.
Yeah, and giving
So
back and helping another mom with
yeah,
something that always feels so good.
yeah, for
That's
sure. Yeah,
exciting. She got to get
yeah.
through the
Thank you.
logistics.
Yes, yes, and set it all up. So, yeah, but exciting to have something new on the horizon to get interested in and start investing in. So I'm
Oh,
excited about it.
I love
Yeah,
that. I love that. You have such
thanks.
an entrepreneurial brain.
That's funny. That's what I always think about you.
I know.
Yeah, that's cool. What about you? What's new for you?
Not much. I did start a new little I wouldn't say practice, a new thing in our family dynamic. My husband was out of town all day yesterday, and I've been thinking a lot about how much I love to read, and I read a lot, but over the last few years, I had switched from handheld books to audiobooks or even reading them on my phone. And a few weeks back, my older daughter, she had mentioned about how I'm always on my phone, and it broke my heart because
Oh,
I wanted to say to her, I'm working and I'm reading, and but she doesn't understand that, of course, and I didn't want to be giving that perception to her. So we have a library in one of our closets with all the kids' books. So yesterday I pulled an old box of books out from my garage and I made room in the girls' library closet for my books. And I wanted to set an example for them. And it was so much fun. They were excited to see my books. And I pulled out an old book that I had started reading early in my 20s. It's The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Have you read that?
no.
No. It's funny because it's kind of about a like a self-help type of book and just being very present in what you're doing now. I had started it back in the early 2000s when it was released, I think 2004, and my brain wasn't developed enough to understand it. I remember holding
Oh,
it in college and it felt like reading a foreign language. But I've held on to it all these years because it was a gift from a family member. And I brought that book out yesterday, and we all got cozy on the couch, and the girls brought books out. And it was such a different dynamic, me holding an actual book versus being on my phone or listening to a book on my phone. And it was so fun. And also I had the realization of like, wow, some of these books that I read so long ago, I'm going to have a different take and a different perspective because my brain has developed in a different, a new way. So that was really cool as well. So it's something we're going
oh,
to do
that's
every weekend,
great.
I think. Yeah,
Yay, that's
it's kind of
great.
fun.
I'm laughing because I think the last book I purchased was called Do Zombies Dream of Undead Sheep?
What
And
is that?
it's a neuroscientist take on whether zombies have neural processing. It's such a nerd book, but it's really good. But I think my kids would probably be scared to hear about
Uh,
zombie brains. So,
Oh, yeah, I definitely had
um,
some. I had some books in there. I was like, ooh, I'm not going to put those out. I had like Paris Hilton's old book. I had like Jenna Jameson's book. I was like, yeah, let's leave that in the box. I was strategic about which books I brought out.
think I'd have to be strategic too. Also,
Yeah.
half of my books are about like psychopathy.
Oh
But they'd
God.
be like just so uninterested. I'm just laughing because I'm sure I'd start reading and they'd be like, oh, mom, stop this. I'm sure there's some books we'd all enjoy. That's a great idea. I love
Yeah.
that idea to start sharing because it's such a good point. I mean, we do everything on our phones now, and my kids think the same thing. They think and I think the same thing of my husband. He's on the phone sending emails. I'm like, what are you doing on your phone? We don't
Yeah.
really, everything happens on the phone nowadays, and we don't know what people are doing. They don't know that we're reading an article about beauty or preparing for this podcast or just reading for
Right.
fun
Or
because
parenting.
it's all on the phone.
And it's
Right. Or
all about
parenting.
everything that we're doing, we're setting an example. And when I say to them, let's take a break from shows and playing and let's have some quiet reading time. Well, gosh, what am I asking of them if I've never showed them quiet reading time with a book? They don't know
Yeah.
because, so here it is. It's like, okay, well, let's all do quiet reading time. I'm going to read this book. You choose some books that they don't read yet, but that you're looking at and we can talk about. And it's setting that example. And it's crazy. This is the first time I've done it, which I probably should have been doing this before, but it was such a beautiful afternoon. We had so much fun.
No, that's so
So I'm going to
nice.
start reading actual hardcover books from now on.
That's great. Yay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
As
Well,
long as they have
cool.
appropriate covers. No.
I know, right? Oh,
I know.
that sounds
Well,
good.
welcome everyone to Platinum Perspective. This is the podcast about beauty, travel, luxury, and more. I'm your co host, Sarah.
And I'm Megan. Sarah and I are best friends who put the work in to get the most out of life so you don't have to.
We are super excited about today's episode. This topic merges my expertise and passion in beauty with Megan's expertise on chemicals of concern and endocrine disruptors, which I am fascinated and excited to learn more on. So, today we are talking about what clean beauty is, why it is important to be educated on it, and what to look for when buying beauty products. The main reason clean beauty is on the rise is that people are realizing what we put on our bodies is just as important as what we put into them. So the world is starting to realize that we've been using super dangerous ingredients for too long, and most of the time because they're cheap and easy to get. So it's really easy to go down a rabbit hole on this topic and feel overwhelmed. I've worked in the industry for years and I still feel overwhelmed by this topic. But we did the research and we are going to simplify it in this episode for you, our listeners.
I have some questions for you for rapid fire about clean
Yay.
beauty. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. This is a simple one, but super important. What exactly does clean beauty mean?
That's a great question because clean beauty is not vegan beauty. It's not green beauty. It's not cruelty-free beauty. Clean beauty refers to that the ingredients in the product are clean. So there are no toxic ingredients. And we're going to get into what those toxic ingredients are.
Okay. And question 2, do beauty products these days still have toxic ingredients?
I would love to say that we are evolved enough and brands are evolved enough to not put toxic ingredients into beauty products, but they are in them more now so than ever. I think because the market is so saturated, they're able to get lost in that and not answer to all the ingredients that are in their products. And we'll get more into that as well and the regulations within that area.
That's the rabbit hole. Okay. Getting into it. Are there any brands that you think we can trust with providing healthy, non-toxic products?
Yes, and I'm super excited that there are a few brands that can definitely be trusted with all their products. And then there's also a few brands that were not clean beauty brands, but they're making a pathway to get there. So their new products coming out do fall under that standard. So we'll recommend those in this episode as well.
Okay. One more bonus question. With such a saturated market and clean beauty becoming the norm, is there any reason to still purchase products not classified as clean beauty?
I think that that's such a great question, and I do think I personally do purchase some products that are not classified as clean beauty if they meet my own standard. And one of those ingredients is talc, and we're going to get into that later on in the episode. But as our listeners are tuning in, it's important to think about where you stand with each of these ingredients, just like with everything in our life. Like personally, I'm okay with Botox, whereas others may not be okay with that. So it's going to be where you stand on each ingredient and then you deciding what's best for you.
It sounds like it's a value judgment based on your own research and drawing that line where it feels appropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Well, I'd love
So,
your perspective on where to draw that line. I'm excited to hear about that.
yeah, well, before
Yeah.
we dig in, Megan, do you want to explain your interest in this topic? Because we've talked about it so much, and I love how interested you are in it, and the research that you were involved with at Berkeley.
Yeah, sure. So, it I stumbled into this not really because I was looking for it, but because it sort of was correlated with some of the factors I was interested in when I was looking at child development. So, I worked at the Center for Environmental Research on Children's Health at UC Berkeley for a while. I'm still affiliated there. I hold on to that affiliation,
As
and
you should.
yeah, with pride. I this think tank is just it's amazing, and there was so much amazing research going on there at the same time that I was there. I was there studying how early puberty relates to mental health in children, especially girls, and it became quickly apparent that there were factors that are causing this or we think are related to early puberty in girls. And one of them that is huge is endocrine disruptors. And this is where it coincides with your interests with beauty and these chemicals, is that these endocrine disruptors find their way into these products, these beauty products that we're using, including shampoo, conditioner, lotions, anything that smells good and says fragrance on them. That is going to be an indicator that there may be some phthalates in there that we don't want to have on ourselves or on our children. And so I started trying to understand what causes early puberty in kids, and endocrine disruptors sort of emerged as a big factor that we need to be accounting for in our models. I think for anybody who's interested in this idea of understanding about why early puberty occurs, why we're seeing these new trends year after year and decade by decade, the book The New Puberty is by Juliana Deardorff, and she was my prior mentor, and it's a fantastic read because it really lays out what factors might be causing early puberty for girls and why we're concerned about it. But again, these endocrine disruptors are one of the reasons why.
Oh,
So that's sort
so
of my interest.
interesting. So
Yeah.
interesting. And that's a great reference for that book. I'm going to get it and add it to my library.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's a good read, and it's for parents. It's for people who want to understand it. We've got girls, we want to know more about it, and it lays it out in a more of a layman's terms, which I appreciate. It's hard to get through research papers sometimes. They're so
Yeah.
jargony. This is not like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
good. Okay. I love that. I'm going to
yeah,
pick it up. Um,
yeah.
so to start off with kind of what clean beauty is and where it came from, and have a little fun with makeup. Makeup dates back all the way to 6,000 BCE. It started with the Egyptians. I
Wow,
know.
that's incredible. I
It's
guess
inc-
that makes sense. You think of like the pictures that you see of like Egyptians with
yes.
the makeup. That's really
Yeah, the
cool.
eyeliner. They
Hmm.
created it because they believed that makeup was next to godliness and that it appealed to the gods. And men and women of all social classes wore makeup. So I learned
Wow.
this early on in my cosmetics career, and it stuck with me because it's fascinating to know where something originates from and the meaning behind it. But then fast forward to the 1880s is when the cosmetic industry took off. And at this time, pharmacists were the ones making makeup. And because it was pharmacists, they were using lots of questionable ingredients and they were using lots of poisonous ingredients back then and just selling it to the population as doctors. So they would put poisonous belladonna, mercury, lead, and even nitrous acid in cosmetic products, which is
Yuck.
crazy,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
I know. So fortunately, the industry evolved, as did everything in life, and cosmetics companies began producing brands with products that were focused on appearance. However, they never had health in mind. Makeup brands all the way up until the 1990s were always focused on appearance.
Hmm.
So this 1990, give or take, is when the clean living kind of emerged, and it emerged from Southern California. And it was this idea of clean eating and everything that you're putting into your body was being put at the center of consumerism. So at that time, clean beauty started to be a topic, and brands gradually began to have labels that said this particular product has clean ingredients, and they would have a health and safety message at the forefront. And then in 1995, Bare Minerals was born. And Bare Minerals, I think I've shared before, but was my entrance into the cosmetics industry. It was the first corporate brand that I worked with. They were the first clean beauty brand. And I love it when someone has worked for a company and they still are a consumer of the company, because you know that they know
Mm-hmm.
the inside and out of that company. I love it when people worked at restaurants, like in college or in their 20s, and then you know they still eat there because they know what the kitchen looks like.
Right. Yeah, good point. They've seen
So,
under the hood.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's me with Bare Minerals. I worked there for years, 7 years, and they are the tried and true clean beauty brand. So
Okay. Oh,
grad
that's interesting.
Yeah, so gradually after Bare Minerals launched, it was slow to pick up, but it wasn't really until 2018 Sephora, more brands had picked up and added to the movement, and Sephora created the Clean at Sephora seal. And this is a seal that's shown on products sold online or in their stores. It's a little green seal with a check mark, and it says Clean at Sephora. And what this means is that it's free, that product is free of over 50 toxic ingredients, including sulfates, parabens, and phthalates. So once Sephora created that, Sephora being the number one wholesale distributor for most brands, Ulta's right there with them, but Sephora is worldwide. So, Ulta is just based in the United States. Once that seal came out, more brands wanted to be a part of that. So they were
Hmm.
creating clean beauty products that could be recognized by Sephora. And then in
Mm-hmm.
2019, the beauty awards began to include clean beauty recognition. So that's another driver for brands. So now here we are in 2023, and 1/3 of the United States market is now labeled clean, which is huge. And clean beauty is actually on track to reach $24 billion by next year. It's a massive
Wow.
market. I
That's
know.
huge. Yeah.
So it is the future. However,
Hmm.
consumer purchasing power will dictate how quickly it evolves to market takeover. So what we choose to buy is going to determine how quickly everybody gets on board. So for me personally, I choose not only for my health, but just wanting to see the market move in that direction, to see innovation in clean beauty products. So, as I kind of said at the beginning, green is not necessarily clean. Green is talking about the packaging. Vegan is not necessarily clean. If a brand says they're vegan, that just means they don't have animal products. Cruelty free is not necessarily clean. That just means it's not tested on animals. So all of these have different meanings and they mean different things, and they're not really regulated definitions. So today we're talking about clean, which means the safe and healthy ingredients that you're putting on your face or body.
I just want to point one thing out, that you not only worked for Bare Minerals, but you also are on some of the boxes that they produced of their product. So this, if anybody wants a glowing review of Bare Minerals, it's right here from Miss Sarah, because
Oh, thank
you
you.
were, I mean, yeah, you were very integral there. I mean, and
I was.
it's
It was so funny.
amazing.
They marketed using a lot of their employees because they wanted to use real women. And when I first started there, I was young and new in the industry, but they plucked me out of the corporate and they put my face on a bunch of stuff, and it was really exciting. And now, my face looks different. Some 15 years later,
Oh,
not 10.
barely, just barely.
But I
Oh
do
my
have
gosh.
those products saved in my makeup closet, and I'll show my daughters, and I have one of each thing that my face was on saved for them when they're older. They may
That's
not
such a
even
cool
want that,
thing.
but you never know.
Oh, I thought it was cool. I was super impressed. That's awesome.
Oh, it was
Um,
fun.
and I want to point out one more thing before we hop into the next topic, is that one thing I've noticed, or one thing I expected, was that clean beauty products were going to cost a lot more. I just thought offhand it's just going to cost so much money to have such clean beauty products. And I actually think the price point at Bare Minerals is so average. Like I'm
Yes.
surprised I'm not having to spend an arm and a leg to get what they have.
Yes.
So I
Yeah,
love that.
I love that too. I think that because they were established in the 90s, their R&D is established, and it's done, and they're not having to innovate as much as other brands possibly would have to. But yeah, their pricing is comparable for prestige beauty, which is
Yeah,
great.
I think so
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
So let's jump into what toxic ingredients we want to watch out for. So I had kind of mentioned for years the beauty industry was not regulated, which is frightening. But last year in 2022, there was a passage of the Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act. So this represents huge progress in the United States. And this bill will make personal care products safer for everyone by getting the toxic chemicals out, reducing unsafe chemical exposure, and making ingredients transparent on the packaging. They'll make this the industry standard, which it's not right now. However, whenever new bills are passed, it takes years to see that in market. So it could take, anywhere from 3 to 8 years to actually see this
Mm.
in in uh, in the brands and in Sephora and in Ulta when we're shopping. So in the meantime, we have to advocate for ourselves and we have to advocate for our families. So what ingredients do we want to make sure that we are not buying products with? Um, and I'm going to list all of these on our Instagram at Platinum Perspective Podcast because it's quite a few. But formaldehyde, phthalates, paraben. Can you pronounce that next one?
Triclosan.
Triclosan, sulfates, artificial fragrances and colors, and then there's going to be many, many more, but those are the big ones.
Hmm.
Um, and I know
I
you
think it's
had,
important, yeah, to talk about what those do also,
yes.
because as I was going through them, I know what some of them are, but I was shocked, for instance, to learn about sulfates. Because what a tricky chemical to have in something like shampoo, where it basically just makes whatever soap you're using lather. So you get the impression that you are having a cleaner wash with that product because of the sulfates included. And I've actually used shampoo that doesn't lather but didn't have sulfates and thought to myself, this doesn't work as well. I don't think I'm getting as much out of this
Ah,
as I would be if I had, the sulfate one. But then I learned what sulfates are, and now I feel tricked.
oh, it's
Like
so
it's sort of
mental.
like the product, yeah, it's sort of like the product lies to you a little bit by having
Hmm.
this nice lather in your hair. You think you're getting a good shampoo, but actually, it's no better than the shampoo that doesn't lather as much. It's just soap. So,
It's actually
um,
worse. The lather is actually worse for us.
yeah, isn't that
Wow,
shocking? I
that is
know.
shocking.
Yeah, and I knew about like phthalates because I'd read about that, and it seemed like any product that says that says fragrance on the back of it, you have to suspect that's a phthalate, basically.
Okay.
Which starts to like, it's hard to find things that don't have that in there.
It is
Um,
hard. It is
yeah,
hard. So, what we're going to get to the products that don't have those ingredients in them, but
yeah.
why, based on your research, Megan, why is it important to make sure we're using products without these ingredients?
Yeah, so basically, when you have these ingredients and they're put on your skin or you're washing your hair with the shampoo or whatever it is, you're putting this toxin on your skin and it's being absorbed by your body. And what we know about these ingredients that we just listed is that they are what we term endocrine disruptors. And these are chemicals that exert estrogenic effects on the female body. That means that it basically these products all turn into estrogen in our bodies. So we think
Hmm.
it's a phthalate or we think it's whatever it is, and then it gets into our body and then it starts having effects that are similar to estrogen in our bodies. And so this is why we think early puberty is occurring for younger girls is that we are using so much fragrance in everything. It's anything that smells good, anything that lathers nicely, like all these beauty products for girls and women. And it's not just bad for younger girls, it's also bad for women who are developed because they affect menstrual cycles, they affect reproduction. There's even papers showing that use of these chemicals and actually linking use of these beauty products with blood samples of how much of these chemicals are actually detected in their blood, that those values and the concentration of what we can find in women's blood is linked to preterm birth. It's linked
Oh
to cancer.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really serious and it's sort of shocking that we know all of this and yet it's not being regulated yet. In as much as the 22 bill you just mentioned was passed,
Right.
it still feels like even for me, somebody who understands the science behind it, it's hard to understand how to apply this knowledge
Hmm.
and actually find the right products to use that don't have these things.
Hmm.
One important piece of information about women's biology is that we have more what's called adipose tissue, and adipose tissue is fat tissue. The reason we have more fat tissue is we are the ones who have babies,
Hmm.
and when we become pregnant, the pregnancy pulls upon those fat reserves to sustain the pregnancy. And so, women, just by nature of who we are, we just tend to have a higher fat concentration than men and have more adipose tissue. These toxins are actually stored in adipose tissue. So, if you
Oh.
think about, I know it's incredible. Like if you think about why women are having so many more effects from this than men, and I'll in a second I'm going to have a caveat there, but it's really because we have more adipose tissue. We're going to be storing more of these toxins in our body long term, and they add up. They are they're additive. It's a
Oh.
dose response. Like
So
the
is it
more you use, the more there is in your body.
That's fascinating. So these products and these ingredients, they're more dangerous to little girls than they are to little boys.
So it's harder to study boys when it comes to pubertal progression, and what we see is like such stark and obvious changes occurring from decade to decade, starting in like the 1970s. Decade by decade, you can look and see very clearly that girls are going to puberty earlier and earlier and earlier, and that's because we have a very nice marker of puberty, which is starting your period.
Oh,
It ends
okay.
up that actually starting your period is maybe midway through puberty. You started puberty. That's like a stage 3 sort of puberty, and there's like 5 stages. So if you
Oh,
think about when
okay.
puberty actually starts, it's actually starting much earlier than that. But because
Mm,
we can use that as a marker for girls, it's so easy to study. For boys, we don't really have that marker, and there's not as clear research in terms of
mm.
if boys are going through puberty earlier. We think that they are, but there's less research on that. But we do know that this having these exogenous or outside the body influences of estrogen for men is also bad, or we think that it could be bad because in animal studies, developmental exposure to phthalates, for instance, had an anti-androgenergic effect, which means sort of going against testosterone for men. And we think
Oh,
of
wow.
testosterone as really, you know, that's a good thing for a man to have. He's going to have testosterone that's going to make him develop. It's going to has a lot of good qualities for men. It's part of their health is having
Hmm.
normal levels of testosterone. So it's sort of anti testosterone, anti androgenergic, and causes feminized traits, abnormal reproductive development, and later puberty in male rats.
Oh,
So
wow.
again, this is less studied in men, but what we know
Hmm.
from animal studies is it's also not good for them. I mean, in
Right.
general, are gonna want to have their testosterone. They're gonna want to, you know,
Right.
um,
It's not
have
good
that.
for
So
anyone.
no, yeah. So, yeah, and we can look and see, like, we have people answer question, not we, but you know, researchers have people answer questions about how much are you using perfume? How often do you use perfume? How often do you use a scented lotion? And you can,
Mm.
you know, equate that exactly to how much parabens do we see in your blood? How much do we see of the phthalates in your urine? Like you know, it's right there. You can test for it in your body, and it's there. So, and it's linked to use of these products. So
Wow,
we
that's
got to do something
fascinating.
here.
We do. And you
Yeah.
know what's funny as or sad is as I'm listening to you speak on this, I've done so much research on makeup because that's my world and clean beauty and I switched to a paraben and phthalate free shampoo and conditioner because of you. But as you're speaking, I'm thinking about the perfume that I use and I I use pink sugar, which is like, I'm sure has all the bad stuff. And I've been using that since I was 20 and I love it. And I'm going to have to check on that after this episode. What perfume do you use, if any?
I, well, since reading some of these studies, I've stopped trying. I will use perfume very sparingly, like the same way you will allow yourself to use a little bit of a talc makeup when you go out
Right,
at night for like a date night on a random, you know, one
right.
night, but I don't use it every day. I just don't use perfume every day because I haven't found one that I would trust that it's like, oh, I could use this every single day and it wouldn't have any effect.
Wow. Okay, that's
So
interesting. My
I
my
know.
my wheels are turning in the middle of this podcast. I'm gonna have to check on my perfume. You
Yeah.
you mentioned talc, and I've spoke on that ingredient previously, but I want to give a little background on it because there's
Yeah.
just general confusion around the ingredient. And when I worked for Bare Minerals, one of their marketing uh, broader taglines was that the products are talc free. And there wasn't a lot of education at the time around talc. So we weren't getting much traction from like, why are we saying it's talc free? We understood as a brand, but the consumer didn't necessarily understand. Well, in the
Mm.
last couple years, Johnson and Johnson has had this very publicized legal battle with lots of lawsuits related to talc being linked from their baby powder to ovarian cancer. And they have had to pay out massively because of this. So, since then, I'm now seeing with more brands that I'm working with, and just as a consumer buying products, I am seeing more brands um, touting when their products are talc free. So, talc is a product that is mined. It's the softest natural mineral that we know of, and it's common in cosmetics because it's able to soak up moisture, like excess oil, and it prevents caking. So It
Mm.
also has the ability to make powder smoother, protect the skin, and just make application easier overall. I can definitely tell the difference between a product that has talc and a product that doesn't. And most eyeshadows and blushes are primarily talc and pigment. Unless the brand, like Bare Minerals and some other ones we'll get into, are taking a stand against talc, then they're using other ingredients like mica or even cornstarch are being used, and they don't have the exact same effect as talc, but it's good enough because it's safer. And if you're
Mm.
using a talc free product, you can use a primer, and that kind of helps with the application. But the reason that talc can be dangerous is because it's being mined, it is also going to be in the same environment quite often as asbestos. And asbestos is a known carcinogen, and it's considered to be extremely dangerous to human health at any concentration. And for some reason, these two minerals, talc and asbestos, have this really bad habit of forming together. So when the talc is mined, there's always a chance that it's laced with asbestos,
Mm.
which is scary. So, some brands like Bare Minerals say we're not going to use talc. We're not going to mess with it. Other brands are going to use talc, but they're going to say we are using asbestos-free talc. The problem here is that it, it's not a regulated industry. The only way to ensure that the product isn't laced with asbestos is by doing small batch testing, which is really expensive and really time consuming and not regulated. So you hope
Mm.
the brand is doing what they're saying, but it's humans are doing this, so there's room for error, and there's risk involved. So, two brands that use talc that speak to using asbestos-free talc that are testing is Buxom and Pat McGrath. So, you mentioned using products for a fun date night. I do use Buxom and Pat McGrath eyeshadows. Their number one ingredient is talc, and it's not an ingredient or a product that I would wear every day because of the risks that could potentially be involved. But are you able to find that super sparkly, amazingly pigmented eyeshadow elsewhere? No. Buxom and Pat McGrath have these. Bare Minerals doesn't because they're using different ingredients. So, for me personally, that's okay to have these as sometime products, just knowing what that means. For someone else, it might be a no-go, and if talc is in the ingredient deck, they just don't want to touch it. So that's something for everybody to just kind of decide on their own. But
Hmm.
it is fascinating.
From a day-to-day perspective, do you just wear Bare Minerals eyeshadow?
I do.
Is that what you tend to use? Okay.
Yes, I
And
do.
and what
Uh,
about like foundation?
yeah. So, I can let's get into some of the brands that we
Yeah.
trust and recommend.
Yeah.
So for hair care, I'm loving right now Shu Umara, their Silk Bloom, which is in the green bottle. That is a clean product. I love that, and my girls both have really long hair, and sometimes I'll use the conditioner on them as well.
So is that a shampoo and a conditioner?
It's a shampoo and a conditioner. Yep.
Okay.
And then I also like Evolve for myself. It's spelled Evolvh. That's a shampoo and conditioner. Have you tried that one?
No.
No, no.
Mm-mm.
That one came as a recommendation off of one of the studies you sent me.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool.
And then for kids, I like Tot Logic and
Hmm.
Babo. And we'll
Hmm.
list all these out on our Instagram for all of our listeners to see. But then for makeup, so I know that I can trust anything Bare Minerals. So I use Bare Minerals foundation. I use their Complexion Rescue, which is a liquid foundation with sunscreen. then I use their powder foundation on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know that with Buxom, so Buxom is made by Bare Minerals. And so they are created in a lot of the same factories as Bare Mineral products, but they do have a more lenient ingredient deck. So their eyeshadows are made with talc, though it's asbestos-free talc.
Mm-hmm.
So I do use Buxom as like my fun if there's an event or going out or date night eyeshadows. House Labs, this is Lady Gaga's new brand. It is a clean brand. It's clean at Sephora. Fun fact, a lot of the same people that worked at Bare Minerals now work at House Labs. So that's fun and exciting to see their careers grow within another amazing cosmetics company. So their products are really great. House Labs, I would consider their products to be more aligned something like MAC, where the consumer's wanting more of a heavy look or a more makeup-y look,
Mm.
whereas Bare Minerals is definitely that more like no makeup look.
Okay.
I also love Milk Makeup, Lawless Beauty. Ilia is a new brand, and I just tried their liquid foundation a few weeks ago, and it was great. They're a clean beauty brand. And then Tower 28, they just came out and they're a clean beauty brand. They have great, I think they call them lip jellies, great lip products. And I'm also loving the Coffee Pot Cream Shimmer Eyeshadow right now. So those are all makeup products that are going to check the box for clean. And then with skincare, I love, for clean skincare, I love Lyra. And a tip with skincare is to look to see if you can use it if you're pregnant and nursing, then it's
Oh,
more likely going to be clean. Um,
okay.
but I do think that when deciding what's best for you with skincare, working with your dermatologist is so important. I do use some skincare that is not clean skincare because the results are important to me, and I've worked with my dermatologist on that. So every person's concerns may be different, and you may be able to lean into a clean skincare product, or you may want to try something else
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking for a specific result. Hair products without phthalates are so key, and I think that that's easy to find. Shu Uemura is just been amazing, so I don't think that there's any reason to use hair products with parabens and phthalates at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, like as the clean beauty movement has become so popular, brands are updating their message to natural and healthy. It doesn't necessarily mean non-toxic. So we have to do the due diligence and we have to look out. Like for example, Burt's Bees is a well-known brand, and when my girls were babies, I bought some of their products, and it sold at Whole Foods. And based on its marketing, I thought this is a safe brand. It should be non-toxic. They say natural and healthy on it,
Mm-hmm.
but they're using two ingredients that when they're combined, they're very dangerous. And the mixture of these two ingredients, the ingredients on their own are not toxic, but when they're mixed together, they're known for contributing to allergies, skin irritation, and even respiratory diseases. So it's little
Wow.
things like that that, as looking out for our own health and the health of our children, it's so
Mm-hmm.
important to be reading up on all those ingredients.
So the Sephora that you said there's a mark that says that it's a clean ingredient list for that product. Is that
Yeah.
trustworthy? Like, is that another good way to go shopping for products? Is just go look and see what they said is clean?
Yes. So I've got two tricks. So one, Sephora has the Clean at Sephora Beauty seal. So when you go on their website, you can see the seal. There, I think it's surprising how few products have that seal on it. So you might be looking for a glitter eyeshadow and there's not any glitter eyeshadow with that seal, or you may be looking for like a volume mascara and there's not one.
Mm.
Yes, so when you see that seal, you will know that that product does not have toxic ingredients. The other trick that I have is that currently The EU bans more than 1,300 ingredients from use in cosmetics. In the United States, the Food and Drug Administration only bans 11 ingredients. Isn't that shocking
Wow.
and
Yes, we're
disturbing?
behind. Yeah.
It's so gross.
Wow.
But this is the pro tip. When I'm shopping and I'm having a hard time finding the ingredient list on a product I'm interested in, or I don't want to spend the time digging through ingredient lists, you can go on to Sephora United Kingdom, their website. It's in English. And what products they're selling are going to be safer than what's being sold on the regular Sephora website that we shop off of
Wow.
because they have different regulations there.
Okay. Oh, good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And then for anyone who is interested in clean beauty but hasn't really tackled it yet, or it feels a little overwhelming, there is Kinder Beauty Box, which is an ethical beauty subscription box. It's really fun. They you sign up and it's like, the Ipsy boxes where they just send you fun things, but this is for all ethical beauty. So it's clean beauty. They have got a lot of green beauty in there, vegan, cruelty free, but it is all classified as clean beauty. So you can get a fun little box with new products to try, and you might find something in there that could replace one of your other products that you've been using that may have not have ideal ingredients.
Okay. Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
Well, this is a lot to take in. It's a lot to put into practice. And so I think one big takeaway from this is that we are looking. I think we should all be judging ourselves on progress, not perfection. Like it's really hard to make decisions on every single ingredient list that we're purchasing. I mean, but if we start now and start trying to understand some of this and make decisions based on the knowledge we have now, we can make progress there. We can make small changes that make big differences later on. So I think that's a good thing to remember because it feels overwhelming. This whole topic feels overwhelming.
Yeah, I love that because I agree. I think it feels overwhelming. And when I start thinking about all the toxins in our products, I start thinking about the toxins in my house cleaning products or the toxins in the clothes that we're buying or the air quality and you just start feeling like so much sadness for our children that this is the world that they're growing up in. So I love progress, not perfection, just replacing one
Hmm.
item at a time as it comes up. I, when I first learned about a lot of the ingredients and your work in studying what they can do to, especially the female body, I immediately replaced my daughter's bubble bath, their shampoo and conditioner, and their sunscreen.
Yeah.
So I think starting there because that matters most. And then clearly I haven't replaced my perfume yet, so that'll come.
Yeah. We'll just try some all natural
Oh God.
substitutes and we can report on how well they work.
You'll have to let me know if I'm stinky next time you see me.
Just spritz some olive oil on you and you're good to go. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to keep making progress too.
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I looked at I have so much salon quality shampoo and conditioner.
Yeah.
And there was such a sadness to like, should I just throw this all out and get some new stuff or just finish it up? And I'm like, you know what? It's expensive. I'm going to finish it up. And then for the next purchase that I make, I'll make a more healthy purchase for myself.
That's a great way to do
So
it.
I
Yeah. And
don't
the
know.
Shu
Yeah.
Amara, the Silk Bloom shampoo and conditioner is phenomenal. I
Ooh,
I
I can't
think
wait.
it
Okay.
compares to I was using Pureology before, which you would think Pureology would be a clean brand based on everything that they tout, and it is not. I think the second ingredient was phthalates. So,
Ugh,
yeah, but the Shu
yeah.
Amara, it's awesome.
Okay.
Try that.
Okay. Good to know.
So I
Yeah.
think so the goal being progress, not perfection, is a great takeaway. I think the other takeaway is reading the ingredient lists.
Hmm.
And, if the first ingredient is phthalates, sulfates, parabens, ditch the product.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think it's confusing when you look at the back because some of those words are just like really big words. We don't know what they are. I
Hmm.
often have to just like go to like Google and ask, does this have phthalates? Does this have
Hmm.
parabens? And then it'll come up quickly and that way, but it's hard to just pick up the back right now. And I'm glad they passed that law. I think that
Hmm.
will help us be able to consume better because I don't know what all these long
Which
chemicals are. I don't know what they do and if they are a phthalate or not. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, and that's
Um,
scary to hear you say that because you're a PhD that's done research in
yeah,
this. So it's like reading a foreign language,
it
It's
is.
just
I don't know. Yeah,
yeah.
what all those things are. So I think it's too garbled right now. They need to clarify exactly what's falling into these toxin sort of categories and make that clear to consumers so that we can make good decisions. Yeah, and then I think one other takeaway here is that anyone with girls, we do need to be concerned with early puberty. It's linked to many mental health disorders for girls. It's linked to just being like you end up being sort of judged based on what you look like, and girls who look older get treated like they're older, and that's not good for their brain development. It's not good for anything. So it's something we do need to be concerned about, and one thing we can intervene on is these chemicals and whether or not they're present in the products that we're purchasing for our kids.
Mhm.
So if we can
Yeah.
avoid them, we should try. I think to the best that we can.
Yes, yeah, I think that that's so key. And just being aware that those ingredients are causing early puberty in some cases, because before I met you and understood your work, I had heard um, girls are getting their period much earlier than we were, but
Hmm.
there was not really this education around it. It kind of just was, this is what it is. But we do have some impact on that. And the
Hmm.
environment that we control for them can help them in the long term. And that's
Yeah.
exciting and scary and a lot of pressure at the same time. But as
Hmm.
moms, we can just do the best we can with everything. And this is one of those.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, now that we know what we know, we can make different decisions. So
Yeah.
we're not always perfect. That's okay. We're just trying our
Yeah,
best. So
we are.
yeah.
And I just think maybe one of our last takeaways is that is clean beauty more expensive? And I love how you mentioned no, Bare Minerals is not. Some other products are. Yes, some of the hair products are. But it's important to prioritize our health now and what we're putting into our bodies now. Ultimately, if we're not prioritizing our health now, we're going to be forced to prioritize illness later. So this is one of those things that just progress, not perfection, and do the best we
Hmm.
can.
Yeah. Yep, I love that. I'd rather be healthy and make sacrifices on a little bit of cosmetic in order to not have the illness stuff later. That'd be great.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that does it for this topic. I'm so glad we got to dig into it together and talk about our interest in it. And I have a feeling this is not the last episode we're going to do on this topic because it's something we're so passionate about. So,
I
yeah,
was
it
just
was a lot of
thinking that
fun.
as well. I was thinking this might be a two-parter because I think that we didn't want it to be too overwhelming with the information, but I still have so
Right.
much more to say on this topic. And I think that I think that
That's
having
good.
yeah, I think that having visuals are important too. So make sure you head over to our Instagram and check out our posts on clean beauty, and I'll share ingredient lists as well as pictures of some of our favorite products.
Yeah.
Yeah, so please rate, like, and subscribe, and check out our Instagram at Platinum Perspective Podcast. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.